Hey everyone, welcome to the Dan Wickline Show. I'm just amusing myself here. I am your host, Danny Rand, and have I told you that I'm Iron Fist? I'm pretty sure I told everyone else. I actually sat on the bus yesterday just telling passengers as they got on, I'm the Iron Fist. I'm the Iron Fist. I'm the immortal Iron Fist. Yeah. There's a good hint of what we're talking about today. But Rand McNally. What a random response. Okay. Before we get started, I just want to say that tomorrow night's episode is going to be our spoiler review of What If, episode 4. But here's my quick 3-word review. Ready? Damn, that's dark. Oh. If you're in a depression state, do not watch the episode. Wait till you're in a good mind state. Okay. Also, I'm curious if anybody out there is playing Marvel's, was it Future Revolution, the new game for the phones? I've been playing the last few days. It's surprisingly cool. I'm having fun with it. And if you are out there or if you're going out there to play it, I'm on Sakar 4 is the server. So let me know, and then we can try to hook up or something while playing. All right. One of the big things coming out of Spider-Man No Way Home trailer was the speculation that Charlie Cox is in the interrogation scene, or more specifically, his forearms. There's a scene that somebody throws folders on the desk, and what people were doing was they were posting images from the trailer and images from Daredevil's Netflix series, and they were trying to compare the arm hair. Well, Cox has come out, and he actually told comicbook.com, and the quote is, "I can assure you those are not my forearms." And he's basically saying he's not in the trailer. Which doesn't mean he's not in the film, just that he's not in the trailer. So just keep that in mind. All right. Moving on to another interesting thing is, and this more got my brain going, but on Sunday there was a tweet from the great Nathan Fillion. Yes, Castle fans of Serenity and Firefly, or fans of Suicide Squad and his other appearances. Come on. Or even fans of The Rookie. Nathan Fillion is a great actor. Now, he was doing a Suicide Squad watch-along, or whatever you want to call it. And the scene where all the Suicide Squad in the beginning is walking and the American flag is on the building behind them, he said, quote, "New goal, same walk in front of Canadian flag. Alpha Flight, anyone? I'd kill it as Walter Langowski." And I have to say he's absolutely right. He would kill it as Sasquatch, a.k.a. Walter Langowski of the Alpha Flight. And now all I could think of is I want a Disney Plus series of Alpha Flight, but with only Canadian actors. I think that would be brilliant. They could get like Patrick J. Adams from Suits to play Vindicator. And then there's a bunch of young up-and-coming Canadian actors like Jessica Matten would be a great Talisman. Tierra Scoveby would be perfect as Sky Snowbird. And then I was thinking like Connor Price and Inanna Sakaris as Aurora and North Star. So Yeah, now I absolutely want that. JD asks, what were you talking about, Mr. Wickline? We are going to be talking about the Iron Fist TV series, the good, the bad, and the ugly from it. There was some good in it. I am not somebody who hated the series, but I also recognize that there were a lot of problems to it. So, but before we get to that, we're going to talk about one of the big things with Shang-Chi, that I've been wondering is what they're going to do about the Mandarin, because the name Mandarin hasn't been showing up anywhere. Now, we heard that Tony Leung's character is mainly referenced as Wenwu. When did the name Wenwu show up? He's never been referred to as that. Is he the Mandarin? I mean, we know he's supposed to be the Mandarin. Well, director Destin Daniel Cretton told Variety about the evolution of the name and the character, and I thought these quotes were great and are good for helping us get ready for Shang-Chi, which debuts on the 3rd, just 2 days from now. Now, he says, and there's a lot of quote here, so a lot of the evolution did happen after Tony came on board. When I was talking to Tony about this character, he didn't know who the Mandarin is, and he didn't care. We weren't using the name Wenwu at the time, but we were definitely not talking about the Mandarin. There were elements of the Mandarin, of that character that remained, but we were talking about a dad who experienced a major loss in his life and has spiraled into despair and psychosis and trying to desperately get back the thing that he lost. That was the character we were talking about. There was a point when it was just weird in the writing process, avoiding the name, because nobody would call him that. It just never felt right for someone to say, "Oh yes, Mr. Mandarin." And so when we had to give him a name, even in the script, he would be called the Mandarin, but when people would talk to him to his face, it was Wenwu, which was the name that we gave him. That was the name Tony clung to, and eventually it found its way into the scene where Tony explains that Mandarin is one of his many names, but that his one true love of his life was the only one who called him by his actual name. Now, that was just one part of the thing with the Mandarin. The other part, of course, is the whole yellow peril trope, and Marvel definitely had to address this. Well, Cretton talks about how they did it. He says, we're obviously working within the context of multiple genres, the martial arts genre, the superhero genre. But from a character standpoint, I feel the process of breaking stereotypes is really just trying to humanize the characters as much as possible. Give them as many sides as we could. Make sure that each character had something clearly human about them that they are dealing with and that we can all connect to, whether you are a similar ethnic background or not. To me, this is when stereotypes are broken, when you see yourself in a character. Our biggest hurdle, I guess, was Wenwu. But it was the first hurdle we had to tackle because we had to convince an actor like Tony to play Wenwu. The only way to do that would be to pitch him a character that was breaking those stereotypes by just being a person that people can relate to. He tried to do that for everyone in the character in our movie, or we tried to do that. I also think that there's a way to break stereotypes just through casting. One big reason why we chose the people that we chose was because they were playing the characters differently, and they weren't playing the cliche version of them or the expected version of them. So there are a little attempts of breaking stereotypes, but we're also just trying to give people something different that they haven't seen in these characters before. So that's something that they obviously recognized that they would have to do and went about it by making it as three-dimensional characters as possible, which I think is brilliant. And it's something that comes up in the Iron Fist stuff too, that there were these tropes in the 70s that were more commonly accepted, which were racist as hell. And stuff like Yellow Peril or the White Savior were tropes that got worked into comics. So I like to see the fact that Marvel is making a much better approach here to dealing with it than they really did with Iron Fist. But again, we're going to get to that. JD says, personally, I love the Mandarin trick in Iron Man 3. Although I was a fan of that character, I probably would have been PO'd. I was a fan. Yeah. I hope Shang-Chi has its own tone like the Incredible Hulk had. From everything I see on Shang-Chi, it looks like it is a unique film unto itself. It's nothing like any of the other Marvel movies, but it'll still have enough connective tissues or thread, that it will be a Marvel movie, but it is also its own entity, which is what I think is actually great about Marvel, is that each film tends to have its own little genre, its own little feel to it. Ant-Man movies are always heist movies, or, you get these changes. Captain America First Avenger was definitely a war movie. Captain America Civil War was a 70s spy thriller, and down the line. Every one of these kind of have their own little niche. So I'm expecting this to have that as well. And I am geeked up to go see this. I really am. I am more excited to see this than I am either the Eternals, Venom, or even Spider-Man No Way Home. This is the movie I'm really looking forward to. That said, all the discussion about Marvel's big martial arts project, let's get into our main topic, which is one of the most disparaged things to come out of Marvel television that wasn't called The Inhumans. Now, as not surprising to anyone, the man behind season 1 of Iron Fist then left the series to do The Inhumans. Scott Buck has a long, interesting history as a writer and a producer. He's been a writer and producer on a variety of series, including Coach, the comedy from the 90s, the animated series The Oblongs, the Nikki Cox-led series Nikki. He then paired up with Michael C. Hall twice, working on 6 Feet Under and then Dexter in the later years, before eventually moving on to take on Iron Fist. Now, take this for what it's worth, but he's done nothing. There's nothing listed on his IMDb page since The Inhumans. So I'm not sure what about this guy and his track record made Jeff Loeb decide he was the choice to do a superhero series. I mean, football coaches, morticians, and serial killers don't really connect to wayward billionaires who are the protector of a mystical city. And I kind of feel like that was the first strike against the series. Now, before I go any further, I have to admit something to y'all. I did not hate Iron Fist. Heck, I even found a few good things in the Inhumans. Yeah, I know. I'm the only one. I liked the actor playing Black Bolt. I love him in other things too. He's great on the Star Trek series now. I thought Serinda Swan did fine as Medusa for the crap that they gave her to work with, and I thought the guy playing the evil brother. That's how much it's not sticking in my head, these characters' names, but So that aside, but today we're talking about. Thank you, Steve. So there was some redeeming stuff to the Inhumans, but a lot of it was the story. And I think it's the same thing with the first season of Iron Fist. It's kind of the writer, the writer-producer on this. But the first season was definitely the weakest in all of the Marvel Netflix offerings. And it had a lot of holes in it, but there were some good things as well. And season 2 of the series was dramatically better under showrunner M. Raven Metzner, who had the Herculean task of putting the train back on the rails. Metzner leaned into the show's strengths, and by the end of season 2, he actually had me excited for what might come next. And I'm not talking about cancellation. I wasn't hoping for cancellation. I really wanted to see where Danny, Colleen, and Ward were going. But it wasn't meant to be. So we're going to take a look at the good, the bad, and the ugly of Marvel's Iron Fist. JD says, to be fair, when Jeff Loeb and Marvel are in the same sentence, I'm surprised anything turns out decent. I'm not going to pile on Jeff Loeb. Jeff Loeb is a talented writer. I consider his run with Jim Lee on Hush probably my favorite Batman story, because it just pulls in all the elements I like in Batman. So I'm not going to pile on Jeff Loeb. I think bringing Scott Buck in may not have been the right fit for this series, but let's keep going on. There's a lot to cover here. It's got a huge history because Marvel have been trying to develop the character for as long, way back in 2000, where they were going to get Ray Park to play. Now, Ray Park probably would have been a great Danny. They would have had to blonde his hair up, and he's a little bit older at that point. But overall, he's got the martial arts moves. But it bounced around for like 15 years before Marvel made the deal with Netflix for a group of live-action series that also included Daredevil, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, and of course, a combination series, The Defenders, where they pulled everybody together. But a little bit after, so word of the series started coming out in October of 2013, but it wasn't officially announced until April of 2015. So what Marvel Television was doing, it was packaging these characters and then trying to shop them to a home, and Netflix is the one that jumped. They were also looking at Amazon Prime, and they were looking at Hulu. Now, once this was moving forward, word surfaced that Marvel was having kind of a difficulty balancing the mystical and the real-world aspects of the series, and there was even a chance it was going to be replaced by a Punisher series, which, of course, Punisher itself ended up happening. But that's when they brought in Scott Buck, and he was hired and as a showrunner, and things kind of settled down. Now, it was originally slated to be the third series out. But then, the second series, Jessica Jones, came out, which had Luke Cage as a guest star, and Michael Coulter's performance got so much buzz that Netflix decided to flip the two, or Marvel decided to flip the two, either way, putting Luke Cage out third and then Iron Fist fourth. Now, Buck said the series would have a lighter tone than the other Netflix series. Since the character was basically lighter than the other Defenders, he referred to Danny as having optimism and hope, which comes across very well in the comics. I mean, if you read the Iron Fist comics, or especially the Heroes for Hire Power Man Iron Fist comics, he was definitely the more hopeful, the more looking at the glass half full. And, so it at least seemed like Buck got the character in concept, or at least it seemed. JD, I'm gonna disagree with you because you say no one was asking for an Iron Fist show. I actually love Iron Fist, but then I started reading him when I was like 7 years old. I was a blonde-haired kid at the time named Danny. I connected, and this was a hero that you could become. You could train like crazy, and then you just had to beat a dragon. So I was absolutely up for an Iron Fist series. I want them to salvage, and that might be why I have better feelings for the series than most people, because I love the character. So, now, Loeb called the series, you think what Buck said was interesting. Jeff Loeb called the series a feminist television series with incredibly strong and unique female characters that are basically holding the men up. Buck said the comics were just a starting point and the series would be very grounded and character-driven. And those two quotes should have scared all of us. Because that's pretty much where it started. They made the male characters weak. And that's not saying that they shouldn't have made the female characters strong. The female characters kick ass in this show. The male characters are the problem. And you should make all good characters. You shouldn't make weaker characters. It's just not good writing. Anyway, so they got to casting. And they started casting the series in November of 2015. But they didn't find their Danny until February of 2016. And there's a good chance the only way they found him is because someone was watching Game of Thrones. Finn Jones and Jessica Henwick were both on Game of Thrones at the same time. And the HBO series was a freaking hit. So there's a good chance that someone at Netflix or Marvel just went, let's take those two and see if we can carry the popularity over. Well, Jones was officially announced in March of 2016. And Jessica Henwick, David Wenham, Jessica Stroup, and Tom Pelphrey all signed in April. Now, Jones's casting came with some backlash, since Marvel had decided not to hire an Asian American actor to play the role. Now, in the comics, Danny Rand is white, and casting of Jones kept to that, but the problem had to do with the character's creation. When Iron Fist was created back in 1974 by Roy Thomas and Gil Kane, he was basically what they call a white savior trope. The idea is that a white character has to come in and save the non-white characters from some unfortunate circumstance. He's an orphaned white child raised in a mystical temple and is the one who defeats the dragon and gets the power of the Iron Fist over all of his Asian counterparts. There are a handful of ways Marvel could have addressed this, from making the character mixed race, which is what a lot of people wanted, or changing the origin story a bit to eliminate the trope. Now, that's kind of, like I said, that's what they're doing with Shang-Chi, dealing with the yellow peril trope of the Mandarin, and of course, Shang-Chi's original father in the comics, Fu Manchu. But they're getting away from that by making these better characters and exploring it that way. Well, here they could have tweaked the origin story a little bit, but they didn't. Marvel did neither. So in a way, Jones entered the series with a strike against him. There were already people saying that this was horrible casting, which is a shame because between bad writing and people already upset at who the lead is, that's not a good way to start a series. Then his second strike came, which is the fact that he had no martial arts training prior to getting the part. And then once things got rolling, production was a bit rushed. So he didn't have a lot of time to train. And then from what I hear from some of the stuntmen on the show, he was also not very good at getting to training. He wasn't very dedicated to the training. Now, again, that's speculation or that's rumors, but you watch the first season, it's not the best martial arts on television, which is amazing when you look at Daredevil. You look at the hallway fight scene they did in the first season, and then you look at Iron Fist, and you're like, why is Daredevil so much better than the fights in Daredevil so much better than they are in Iron Fist? It should be the other way around. This should be where we get the amazing fighters. But let's see. JD says, it's kind of worked out, though. It would have been cruddy if they did cast an Asian person as the star of one of Marvel's first duds. Fair point. But yeah, they didn't know it was going to be a dud. And yeah, I definitely think Inhumans is the big dud, but yeah, this wasn't everyone knew, Dan. I'm trying to be balanced about this. Like I said, there are things in this series I actually liked, and season 2 was a lot better. You didn't watch the show, JD? Oh, man. All right. Well, so the second season, he's got all the problems going on. Throw in the fact that Buck had decided not to use the character's mask, which would make it a lot easier to swap in a stunt double. And it seemed like Jones was just set up for failure. Then you look at the first season and see that Buck never really got the feel for the character in the script. I mean, he talked about Danny being optimistic and lighter, and instead he came across as whiny and entitled. Yeah. The first season blows. I'll give you that, JD. The first season just isn't good. Like I said, there were things about it I liked. And the rest of the cast were good for the most part, while the stories were weak. Henwick played a great Colleen Wing. And in a lot of ways, she actually became the star of the first season. Tom Pelphrey did good work with mediocre material. And poor David Wenham as Harold Meacham, he had nothing to work with and still tried to make, I mean, it was pretty close to a mustache twirling villain. The series did pick up quite a bit when it had other characters come in. Sacha Dhawan played Davos, or we also know him in the comics as the Steel Serpent. He was awesome. Wai Ching Ho, who plays Madame Gao in the Daredevil series, shows up here as well. And again, great performance. Rosario Dawson's Claire Temple shows up. And again, another good performance. But those highlights don't save a series with a lot of problems. Now, we're going to get into the premise here. But before we do that, we're going to probably take a commercial break in a second. But I want to tell you guys, remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons. That would be greatly appreciated. Also, remember we have a Twitch account, and we have a TikTok account, and we have an Instagram account. And I know TikTok and Instagram, it's _EXP1. So follow us there. And you can see what our lineup is, what are we talking about. JD, you come in every day and you go, what are we talking about? Our Instagram will tell you. I don't mind telling you, so you can ask anyway. But if you want to know in advance, you can check out our Instagram and our TikTok. All right, let's go ahead and pop in to our commercial real quick, and then we'll come back and we'll continue our talk about Marvel's Iron Fist. Be right back.
There's something for every imagination at your local comic shop. Visit ComicShopLocator.com to find a store near you.
Welcome back, everybody. We are talking today about J.D. Smith's favorite TV series of all time, Marvel's Iron Fist. Yep, he's joining us in this conversation because he loves the show and didn't want me to talk bad about it. So before we get back into our overview of the series, I want to remind you guys that coming up right after this show is Dynamic Forces, They're going to be Dynamic Forces Comic Collectibles Show. And I've got a list of a couple of the books they got coming up. And there's an Amazing Spider-Man, Renew Your Vows, number 8, signed in silver by Gary Conway. There's, JD says I've been besmirched. There's a Batwoman, number 1, signed by James Tynion. There's an Amazing Spider-Man, One More Day, signed by, and a head sketch. So signed in a head sketch by John Romita Sr. There's even a copy of Godzilla number 1 signed by Dwayne Swierczynski. And I said Swierczynski right, which is amazing. Deadpool number 2, Blood Red signature signed by Fabian Nicieza. These are all books that are going to be available in the next hour. So stick around for that. I would tell you what's on after that, but I currently don't know. So hopefully Kyle will pop into the private chat and I'll tell you guys in a few minutes. But let's go ahead and get back to J.D. Smith's favorite show, Marvel's Iron Fist. All right. Now, the premise of it is kind of simple. After disappearing at a young age and being presumed dead for 15 years, Danny Rand returns to New York City to reclaim his family's company from Harold Meacham and his children. Of course, there have been many heirs to the claims as heirs to the throne over the years, so they assume he's another con man or nut job. The interesting thing is that while he's away, he'd been off in the mystical city of Kunlun, where he learned to fight-ish and gained the powers of the Iron Fist. He befriends a martial artist instructor named Colleen, who we find out later on just happens to have been trained by a member of the Hand, the mortal enemy that Iron Fist is supposed to stop. As the series progresses, we learn that Harold Meacham was behind Danny and his parents' plane crash in the mountains of Tibet, and that he's working with the Hand. Davos comes from Kunlun to get Danny to return because they kind of want their massive weapon back. You know, they don't want it heading out on walkabout. And, of course, we meet Bakuto, Colleen's old instructor, who is fascinated by the legacy of Iron Fist and actually shows Danny footage of a previous wielder of the weapon from, it looked like the 30s, maybe? And we get the first look of him actually wearing the Iron Fist mask. And it's the only look we get at it. I'm not even reading that one, JD. So yeah, he sees this footage. There's also a drug storyline involving Madame Gao, who seems at odds with Bakuto, and somehow Claire Temple ends up in the middle of all this because she's taking up, because having watched all these people fight, she decides she needs to learn how to fight. If she's going to hang out with Daredevil and Luke Cage, she needs to learn to fight. So she goes to the dojo to learn to fight. And then the three of them end up, Colleen, Claire, and Danny, go on hunting the Hand. Yeah, that's pretty much season 1. The highlights of the series were some of the supporting casts, which include, like I said, Davos, Madame Gao, Claire, and of course Colleen. Her fight scenes were some of the best in the series. I mean, Danny's best fight had to be against Drunken Master Zhao Cheng, played by Louis Tan. And Louis Tan, you might know from the current Mortal Kombat new movie that came out. He's the main character. Well, this was in the 8th episode of the season, and I'll still go back and occasionally watch that fight scene. So if you haven't watched any of Iron Fist, look online, Iron Fist versus Drunken Master, and that's a good fight scene. And Louis Tan is great in it. And it's probably the best fight scene that Finn Jones does. Now, Danny had a showdown with the Hand and with Harold, but overall, most of the season was just kind of flat. I mean, there were hints of hope, and we got this cool ending scene with Davos talking with one of Harold's children, Joy Meacham, and Madame Gao is like sitting at the next table over, showing that she's got a hand in this too. But we see that basically Danny's past and Danny's present are kind of merging together. So from his life in Kunlun and his life in New York are now mixing together, and the hand is manipulating all of it. So they give us that little tiny bit of hope at the end, like, oh, wait, there might be something in season 2. And we do kind of end up getting the Steel Serpent in season 2. I mean, Davos really is the bad guy, and he is teamed up with Joyce. So they give us what they kind of hint at. And they give us a different showrunner, which makes season 2 a lot better. But before we got season 2, we got the 8-part Defender series, which kept Danny as being the whiny, entitled kid in the group. And he's constantly telling everybody he is the immortal Iron Fist. It is honestly one of the weirdest things I've ever seen in a TV show. He literally announces that he's the immortal Iron Fist. And most people he tells to go, "You're what?" Because it's not like, "I'm Superman." And people go, "Superman, the guy that flies around Metropolis?" No, "I'm the immortal Iron Fist." And that is, it's like being the Grand Poobah. I mean, where are you going with that? So that's a weird thing about the character, but he's still the whiny young guy in the Defender series, and he's probably the weakest part of the Defender series too. But Jones was able to make the character a little bit more interesting in the Defenders, and his fight scenes actually did improve some. And then we got the saving grace. The saving grace was definitely the episode of Luke Cage in season 2 where we got the Heroes for Hire. We got Luke Cage and Danny teaming up for an episode. We got them fighting together. We got humor. We got Danny being written like Danny from the comics. We got his much more hopeful. He's much more optimistic. He's much more mystical. He's all about trying to help Luke find his center, get his chi straight, stuff like that, which is how Danny was in the comics. And just to see that episode just made you go, okay, Finn Jones could have played the part properly if he was given the right material. Now, I don't know if he would have been able to pick up on the martial arts like he should have, but there was hope there. And then we did get to season 2. And like I said, I went into season 2 a little more hopeful because A, Scott Buck was gone. He had gone over to destroy the Inhumans. M. Raven Metzner was brought in, and everything Metzner was saying online really sounded like he got it. He understood Danny. Now, I don't know what Metzner's plan was for the series, but he took Danny and he gave him a new purpose. With everyone believing that Matt Murdock was dead as of the end of the Defenders, really, JD, he passed the buck. Oh, good. That was actually good. But with everybody believing Murdock was dead, Danny started patrolling Hell's Kitchen in Daredevil's place, which is something directly from the comics. Him trying to take over for Daredevil and be the guardian of Hell's Kitchen. Davos became the big bad of season 2 and was determined to steal the Iron Fist back from Danny, which I thought was pretty interesting, and I could see Davos going for that. We got Simone Missick join the series as Misty Knight, who we had met in Luke Cage. So we actually got episodes of the Daughters of the Dragon, basically. There was 6 episodes that she was in. And there's another great fight scene where the two of them, Misty and Colleen, take on guys at a bar. And it's a great fight scene. So the fight scenes definitely picked up. They were improved in season 2. They also brought in, and I'm not sure why, but they brought in a Daredevil villain, Typhoid Mary, who was played by Alice Eve. And I never really got, I mean, yeah, they worked her into the story, and they did so by bringing the Joy Meacham, tying her to Joy Meacham and stuff like that. But it seemed like a very strange character for them to borrow for Iron Fist. So that one never quite worked for me. But that aside, one of my favorite elements of season 2 turned out to be the relationship between Danny and Ward. Ward being Harold Meacham's son. I believe he's actually the one that kills Harold, is Ward, not Danny. Tom Pelphrey just does a great job with the evolution and growth of the character in this season. He's dealing with the fact he finds out he has a son that he didn't know about. He's trying to change his life. And all this is going on where he was kind of a rival and didn't trust Danny in the first season, thinking, oh, he's just coming to take our money. Ward changes as the series goes. And they start to not only trust each other, but they become allies, and you get that brotherly feeling that we were kind of, because the whole idea was that the Meachams and the Rands grew up together. And that they were kind of like family. So, but we never really got that when he came back. By the end of season 2, it felt like they were almost brothers. And again, that was another thing that I really enjoyed about the series. So the evolution of Ward as a character, I thought was amazingly good, because I thought he was okay in season 1 and turned out to be great in season 2. They also brought more of the Iron Fist lore in. They introduced, there was a body of a former Iron Fist being revealed, and then they discover that Colleen is actually a descendant of the first female Iron Fist, who also happened to be a badass pirate. And this is from the comics. This was a character created by Matt Fraction and Greg Rucka. They made the first female Iron Fist, but she was also, like I said, a badass pirate captain. All right, JD's just on a roll today. I'm just picturing JD as Joker from the Joker movie, but standing up doing the stand-up routine. There's a part that completely departs from the comics, which is Danny decides to give the Iron Fist to Colleen once he realizes that there's a connection. And I don't know how that's supposed to work. Now, there's this ritual Davos is trying to do, and it involves these mystical sisters that he has to find. And the whole idea is that he's going to capture Danny and then pull it. And they do this thing, and it gets interrupted, this ceremony, it gets interrupted. And part of the Iron Fist ends up in Colleen, and part of it in Davos. And then it just gets really confusing there. It all ends up with, at the end, Colleen has the Iron Fist and is protecting the streets, and she pulls her sword out at one point and lights it up. But instead of yellow, you get this pure white light that also lights up her sword. But that's not where things end with Danny, because he and Ward start tracking down this body, this Iron Fist body that was discovered, a corpse, and it leads to another former Iron Fist, Orson Randall. Well, the series ends with the two of them in some far-off country at a bar trying to find Randall and talking to some of his underlings. And they're like, oh, he doesn't want to see anybody now. He's mad. Somebody broke into his warehouse and stole some of his stuff. And Danny says, yeah, that was me. And when they pull the gun and shoot at him, and he pulls out two automatics, and his hands light up and the guns light up like the Iron Fist, and he fires. And he ends up shooting the bullet out of the air that was fired at him. It's a scene that's hard to explain, but it worked really well in the ending. And the Iron Fist guns is something the character of Orson Randall has in the comics. So with the introduction of that character and that idea, we ended season 2 with this idea, oh, wow, where are we going next? You know, it was almost like Metzner had to clean up everything that Buck had done and started bringing it around and got to this cool point, and then we were done. Now, when season 2 ended, like I said, I really came to like Ward, his relationship with Danny, the idea of them traveling together and digging into the Iron Fist history. Those last few moments of the season made me immediately want a third season. And Jessica Henwick was wonderful as Colleen, and all of her scenes with Misty Knight were great. Ward's character grew a lot in the season, and taking the Iron Fist away from Danny was probably the best thing they could have done for the story so that he could actually grow and, you know, maybe get the power back later or keep Orson Randall's power or whatever it is. But he needed to grow as a character, and I think to do that, they had to take the Iron Fist away from him. The fights in the season were an improvement, and it seems like Jones had actually gotten better at fighting, like he had actually trained in between the 2 seasons. Now, in truth, the series still wasn't good, but it was better, and there was enough moments that made me enjoy it quite a bit more than season 1. Yeah, season 2 had big promises, as Steve points out. Now, it was also the first time, I believe, that it was also the first of the Netflix series to get the axe or not get renewed. Now, I don't think it surprised anyone, but when Jessica Jones, Daredevil, and Punisher didn't get renewed, that's when things started becoming obvious that something else was up. And this had to do with the power shift beginning and Kevin Feige taking over all of Marvel. Jeff Loeb was out, Marvel Television was out, and the Netflix series were all dead. Now, whether it was Netflix that pulled the plug, maybe not wanting to work with Disney anymore, now that Disney had announced Disney Plus and they had purchased part of Hulu, or if Disney was calling the shots here and said, okay, we're done, we're wrapping it up. Either way, the shows were done, as were the notion that they were tied with the MCU. Suddenly, none of Marvel Television were connected. Even Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which starred Clark Gregg from the movies and had guest appearances by Nick Fury, Peggy Carter, and Lady Sif, were now all suddenly, wow, really, JD? Brand discourse, wow. That one threw me off, I got to tell you. So, though Clark Gregg has recently come out and says that he doesn't believe that the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. series is non-canon now. Don't know how accurate that is or not, but we'll have to see. Now, the rumors have been that some of the Netflix characters may end up continuing on in the MCU, but not all of them. Kevin Feige said that there was some casting that he really liked. Charlie Cox's portrayal as Daredevil, Vincent D'Onofrio as the Kingpin, Christian Ritter as Jessica Jones, and John Bernthal as the Punisher. These were the characters he specifically pointed out in an interview as the ones he really liked. And those, of course, are the ones we're getting the rumors about. Charlie Cox was a great Daredevil. Vincent D'Onofrio was, the casting for the Daredevil series was perfect. It really did come across that way. And there's a good chance that those 4 characters are going to come back. Charlie Cox has been rumored for both the Spider-Man No Way Home and for She-Hulk. Jessica Jones has been, Christian Ritter has been rumored for She-Hulk. Vincent D'Onofrio has been rumored for the Hawkeye series. And there's talk about John Bernthal coming back too. He didn't mention Finn Jones or any of the Iron Fist cast. He didn't mention Mike Coulter or any of the Luke Cage cast. Which is kind of interesting because 2 members of the Luke Cage cast from season 1 are actually already in the MCU. And you know, they used to not like reusing actors. Alfre Woodard appeared in Captain America Civil War as Miriam, and then in Luke Cage as, her character is supposed to be Black Mamba, but Mariah, I think was her name. And then Mahershala Ali has already been cast as the new Blade, and he, of course, was Cottonmouth. Now, I think it's safe to say, while we may get some of the Netflix characters back, that the days of Finn Jones as Danny Rand are probably completely done. He has definitely ran his course, JD. That's so bad. Now, I'm hoping Doctor Strange erases memory of Iron Fist from continuity. JD, if you're going to talk this much smack about the show, you have to watch it now. I think that's only fair. You need to go and actually watch some of the episodes. Go watch episode 8 of season 1 at least, so you get the good fight scene, the Drunken Master fight scene, and watch some of season 2. But now, just because Finn Jones doesn't come back, that's not to say that Iron Fist is done. Now, Marvel has reclaimed many heroes over the years, and with the introduction of Shang-Chi this weekend, I think the odds of the character coming back are actually pretty high. Well, heck, with they've got this big tournament going on, and we see Wong versus the Abomination, and there's all these other fighting. You know how easy it would be to put Iron Fist in the background of a martial arts tournament? I mean, you could actually introduce him as a fighter. You could put him in the yellow mask and the dragon tattoo and never really have to show the guy's face that much. He could be a cameo, or he could actually be a fighter. And if they know who they're going to cast, they could even do that and not really have to spend a lot of time on him as just another contestant, but a wink and a nod to Marvel fans that, yep, we're going to get a new Iron Fist. Or they could absolutely bring in Finn Jones, but I don't see that happening. I really don't. Plus, with the way the tournament is shaping up, it seems like they're fighting for entrance into one of the mystical cities of heaven, maybe. I mean, we know Kunlun is one of them, and there's this place that the dragons are and stuff. I think it would make a lot of sense that Kunlun would have sent somebody, and of course, they would have sent their Iron Fist. But, or bringing the character in for a sequel would make a lot of sense, too. I mean, because in the comics, when Shang-Chi and Iron Fist team up, it's really a lot of fun, and getting to see them fight together. I mean, if they recast and they get someone who can really do the moves like Simu Liu can do with Shang-Chi, I think it would be awesome. I would love to see a Shang-Chi and Iron Fist team up in the second film. I would definitely buy a ticket to go see that. Yes, JD, they could have him drunk in the corner, asleep, and you just see the tattoo on his chest. Maybe the mask is hanging out of his back pocket. Yeah, I could see that. Shang Fist and Iron Chi, an Ang Lee film. Man, JD, you're just rolling today, aren't you, sir? All right, guys. That's my review and look back at Marvel's Iron Fist. Again, it was definitely the weakest of the Marvel series on Netflix. But it's not the weakest Marvel series. There's been some bad Marvel series, and The Inhumans is definitely the worst. But you can look at some of the Hulu series, haven't always been great. There was some definite redeeming qualities to the series that makes it, I very much want the character back. And if they blew us away and suddenly Finn Jones showed up in Shang-Chi, sitting at the bar, telling people, I'm the immortal Iron Fist, I wouldn't be upset. I'd be surprised, but I wouldn't be upset because I do want Iron Fist back in the MCU. I love the character. I'm bummed that they never did a hot toy because, from the Netflix series, we got the Great Daredevil hot toy. We got the Punisher hot toy, which is up there. But we never got a Luke Cage, we never got a Jessica Jones, and we never got an Iron Fist. And that's a shame. And we never got a Vincent D'Onofrio Kingpin. That would have been awesome. I think Hot Toys dropped the ball there. But I just saw yesterday I saw the sculpts for the first photos for Shang-Chi's figure and Wenwu's figure, and they look amazing. So if you're a Hot Toy fan, go check out the pre-orders for the Shang-Chi and Wenwu. They are absolutely stunning. The face sculpts are some of the best I've seen Hot Toy do. Anyway, we're going to wrap up the show there. Remember, tomorrow night I will be back at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern for our late show. Suddenly I'm very big show. Ed Sullivan here. We're going to be back for our spoiler discussion of Marvel's What If Episode 4, which is super dark. It is the Doctor Strange episode. And again, if you are in a bad headspace, this is not the episode to watch. Go back and watch episode 1 again, which is a lot more fun, or episode 2, which is a lot more fun. 3 is kind of dark. 4 is... Whew. I watched it last night and I'm going, oh my gosh, I'm going to turn the news on so I can feel better. JD, thanks for sticking around and chatting. Steve, also, I'm glad you're a fan of the Iron Fist series and that I'm not alone on it. Thank you guys both and everybody else for sticking around. Stay tuned for Dynamic Forces Comics Collectible Show with Rex and the Not Nicks. They got some great books lined up. Thank you, Kyle, for being back and running the board. And I am out of here. Good night, everybody. Did Kyle fall asleep?